Hey there, you awesome viewer. Before we jump into the super cool story, I need you to do something fun. Grab your phone or your computer and type in the comments where are you watching from today. Are you at home? At school? Maybe outside on a swing? I want to know. And hey, if you love wild and crazy stories like the one I'm about to tell you, don't forget to hit that big red subscribe button. It's right there, waiting for you. That way, you won't miss any of my fun tales. Okay, now here's a question to make you think. Have you ever met someone who acted like they were the boss of everything, until they found out they weren't? Oh, trust me, you're going to love this story. It's about to get super exciting, so stick with me until the end. Picture this, it's a bright, sunny Saturday morning. The sky is blue, the birds are chirping, and the air smells like fresh grass. We're in a quiet little neighborhood where houses sit in neat rows. Kids ride bikes, dogs wag their tails, and everything feels calm and happy. That's where we meet Jake. Jake is just a regular guy. He's not super tall or super short. He's not loud or fancy. He's just Jake. He's got short brown hair, a friendly smile, and a beat-up old car that's seen better days. That car? It's kind of rusty, and the paint is peeling off, but Jake doesn't mind. He loves it anyway. All he wants today is to relax. Maybe sit on his porch with a cold lemonade and listen to some music. That's his big dream for the weekend. Simple, right? Jake lives in a small house with a tiny yard. It's not a big, shiny mansion or anything like that. It's just a cozy little place he calls home. He moved here a few months ago, and he likes it. The neighbors are nice, well, most of them are. He waves to the old lady next door who grows flowers. He says hi to the dad down the street who walks his dog every morning. Jake doesn't make a lot of noise. He doesn't throw big parties or cause trouble. Most people don't even notice him. He's like a quiet shadow, just doing his own thing. And that's how he likes it. No fuss, no mess. Just a chill guy living a chill life. But guess what? Not everyone likes chill. Oh no. Someone in this neighborhood has their eyes on Jake. Someone who doesn't like his rusty car or his quiet ways. Someone who thinks they're in charge of everything. And that someone is about to turn Jake's relaxing Saturday into a total roller coaster. Who is it? Her name is Karen. Yep, Karen with a big K. She's not just any Karen, she's the HOA Karen. Now, if you don't know what HOA means, don't worry. I'll explain it super easy. HOA stands for Homeowners Association. It's like a group of people who make rules for the neighborhood like, no pink flamingos in your yard or don't paint your house purple. Stuff like that. And Karen? She's the boss of it? Or at least, she thinks she is. Karen lives 2 houses down from Jake. Her house is big and perfect. The grass is always cut just right. The windows sparkle like diamonds. She even has a little sign in her yard that says, Karen's Kingdom. Okay, maybe not really, but it might as well. Karen walks around like she owns the whole street. She's got short blonde hair that's always puffed up, and she wears bright red lipstick that you can see from a mile away. When she talks, her voice is loud and sharp, like a teacher yelling at a kid who forgot their homework. Everyone knows Karen. And everyone knows not to mess with her. If your trash can is out too long, Karen will knock on your door. If your dog barks once, Karen will write you a note. She's got rules for everything, and she loves telling people what to do. Now, Jake didn't know much about Karen when he moved in. He heard some whispers from the neighbors like, watch out for her or she's a little bossy. But Jake didn't care. He figured, I'll just stay out of her way, and she'll stay out of mine. Smart plan, right? Well, not today. Because today, Karen decided Jake was her next target. And it all started with something so small, so tiny, you'd never guess it could cause such a big mess. What was it? His car horn. Yep, that rusty old car of his had a horn that wasn't even loud. It didn't blast like a trumpet or roar like a lion. It just made a little beep. A tiny, squeaky beep. No big deal, right? Wrong. To Karen, that beep was like a giant alarm bell ringing in her perfect little world. Let's back up a bit so you can see how it all happened. Jake had been out running errands that morning. He went to the store to grab some snacks, chips, soda, maybe a candy bar or two. You know, the good stuff for a lazy day. He was driving home, singing along to the radio, feeling happy. His car bumped along the road, creaking a little because it's so old. He turned into his driveway, and that's when it happened. His hand slipped just for a second and bumped the steering wheel. Beep. That's it. One little beep from his horn. He didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. He laughed to himself and shook his head. Oops, he said out loud, talking to nobody. He figured that was the end of it. Park the car, go inside, relax. Easy peasy. But across the street, behind her perfect curtains, Karen heard that beep. Her head snapped up like a dog hearing a whistle. She marched to her window and peeked out, her eyes narrowing. She saw Jake's car, that rusty, ugly thing sitting in his driveway. She saw Jake step out, carrying his grocery bag, looking all calm and happy. And that made her mad. Really mad. Why? Because Karen didn't like anything she couldn't control. She didn't like Jake's car. She didn't like that he didn't mow his lawn every single day. And she really didn't like that beep. To her, it was like Jake was breaking every rule in her book. And Karen? She had a big book of rules in her head, rules nobody else even knew about. Karen didn't waste a second. She grabbed her phone off the kitchen counter. She put on her flip-flops, bright pink ones that matched her lipstick, and stormed outside. Jake didn't see her coming at first. He was too busy unlocking his front door, thinking about his chips and soda. But then he heard her voice, cutting through the air like a siren. Hey! You, she shouted. Jake turned around, surprised. There was Karen, standing in the middle of the street, pointing at him like he'd just robbed a bank. What's wrong with you? She yelled. That horn is against the rules. Jake blinked. Rules? What rules? He didn't know about any rules against a tiny beep. Sorry, he said, trying to be nice. It was an accident. But Karen wasn't having it. She stomped closer, her flip-flops slapping the pavement. An accident, she snapped. That noise is ruining this neighborhood. I'm calling the cops. Jake's eyes got wide. The cops? For a beep? Was she serious? But Karen was already dialing her phone, her fingers moving fast. She smirked at him, like she'd already won some big game. Now, here's where things get really fun. Jake didn't argue. He didn't yell back. He just stood there, leaning against his car, watching her. Most people would freak out if someone called the cops on them for something so silly. Most people would say, "This is crazy," or "Leave me alone." But not Jake. He stayed calm. Too calm. And if you looked close, you'd see a tiny smile on his face. Just a little one, tugging at the corner of his mouth. Why? Because Jake had a secret. A big, juicy secret that Karen didn't know about. A secret that was going to make this day a whole lot wilder than she ever expected. What was Jake's secret? Oh, I can't tell you yet. That would ruin the fun. But let's just say this, Jake wasn't who Karen thought he was. She saw him as some quiet guy with a junky car, someone she could boss around and scare. She thought he was a nobody. But Jake? He was way more than that. He'd been watching Karen for a while, not in a creepy way, but in a smart way. He'd seen how she acted, how she picked on people, how she thought she was the queen of everything. And he knew something she didn't. Something big. Something that was going to turn her perfect little world upside down. Karen didn't notice Jake's smile. She was too busy talking to the 911 lady on her phone. Yes, hello, she said, her voice loud and bossy. I've got a noise problem here. This guy keeps honking his horn, and it's against the rules. Send someone quick. She glared at Jake while she talked, like she was daring him to say something. But Jake didn't. He just crossed his arms and waited. The sun was shining, the birds were still chirping, and Jake looked like he didn't have a care in the world. Weird, right? If someone called the cops on you, wouldn't you be nervous? Wouldn't you be mad? But Jake wasn't. And that's because he knew what was coming next. The neighborhood was quiet now, except for Karen's loud voice. A few neighbors peeked out their windows, wondering what was going on. The old lady with the flowers raised an eyebrow. The dad with the dog shook his head. They'd all seen Karen flip out before. It wasn't new. She was always mad about something: trash cans, dogs, kids playing too loud. But calling the cops over a car horn? That was wild, even for her. They watched Jake, too, waiting to see what he'd do. Would he yell? Would he run inside? Nope. He just stood there, cool as a cucumber, with that tiny smile still on his face. Karen hung up the phone and pointed at Jake again. "You're in big trouble now," she said, her voice dripping with glee. "The cops are coming, and they'll make you sorry." She thought she had him trapped. She thought she'd won. She thought Jake was just some guy she could push around. But here's the thing about secrets: they don't stay secret forever. And Jake's secret? It was about to come out in the best way possible. Karen had no idea what she'd just started. She thought she was the hunter, chasing Jake down. But really? She was the one walking into a trap. And Jake? He was ready to spring it. So, what happens next? Will the cops show up and take Jake away? Will Karen get her way and rule the neighborhood forever? Or does Jake's secret change everything? I'm not telling you yet. You've got to keep reading to find out. But I promise it's going to be awesome. This sunny Saturday is about to turn into a day nobody in this little neighborhood will ever forget. Jake's got something up his sleeve, and Karen's about to learn a lesson she'll never see coming. Ready for the wild ride? Let's keep going. Jake was just pulling into his driveway when it all started. It was a sunny Saturday, and he was feeling good. He'd been out getting snacks, chips, soda, some gummy worms, and now he was home, ready to chill. His car was old and rusty. The blue paint was peeling, and the tires looked tired. But Jake didn't mind. It got him where he needed to go. He turned the wheel, pulled into his little driveway, and that's when it happened. His hand slipped just a tiny bit and bumped the horn. Beep. A little squeaky sound came out. It wasn't loud. It wasn't long. Just a quick beep. No big deal, right? Nope. Not today. That tiny beep was about to start a huge mess. Across the street, Karen heard it. She was in her big, perfect house, probably sipping tea or writing more rules for everyone to follow. Her ears perked up like a cat hearing a can open. That beep wasn't loud, but to Karen, it was like a giant fire alarm going off in her head. She dropped whatever she was doing, maybe a fancy pen or a rulebook, and ran to her window. She peeked out, her eyes squinting hard. She saw Jake's rusty car sitting there. She saw Jake step out, holding his grocery bag, looking all happy and calm. And that made her mad. Super mad. Why? Because Karen didn't like anything she couldn't boss around. And that beep? It was like Jake was challenging her, even though he didn't mean to. Karen didn't wait a second. She grabbed her phone off her shiny kitchen counter. She slipped on her bright pink flip-flops, the kind that slap the ground when you walk, and stormed outside like a tornado with legs. Her blonde hair bounced as she marched across her perfect lawn. Her red lipstick glowed in the sunlight. She looked like a superhero, but not the nice kind. More like the kind who yells at people for no reason. Jake didn't see her at first. He was too busy pulling his key out of his pocket, thinking about his snacks. But then he heard her. Oh boy, did he hear her. That noise is against the rules. Karen shouted, her voice loud and sharp. She stood in the middle of the street, pointing her finger at Jake like it was a sword. Jake turned around, surprised. His eyes got big. What noise, he thought. Then he remembered the beep. That tiny little beep from his horn. Was she really mad about that? I'm calling the cops, you little punk. Karen yelled, waving her phone in the air. Jake blinked. Punk. Him. He was 28 years old. He wasn't some wild kid with a skateboard or anything. He was just a guy with a rusty car and a bag of chips. But Karen didn't care. She smirked at him, her lips curling up like she'd already won a big prize. Jake didn't know what to say at first. He stood there by his car, holding his grocery bag, looking at her. Karen was mad, really mad, and he didn't get why. It was just a beep. Not a big boom or a loud honk. Just a little sound that lasted, like, 1 second. But Karen acted like he'd set off fireworks in her backyard. It's just a horn, ma'am, Jake said, trying to be nice. He even called her ma'am to show respect. His voice was soft and calm, like he was talking to a teacher or something. He didn't want trouble. He just wanted to go inside and eat his gummy worms. But Karen? She didn't want calm. She didn't want nice. She laughed right in his face. Ha, she said, her laugh loud and mean. Just a horn? You don't belong here with that junk car. She pointed at his car like it was a pile of trash. Jake looked at it. Sure, it was old. Sure, it had some rust. But it worked fine. He didn't see why she hated it so much. I'll have you fined. Karen snapped, her voice getting louder. Or better yet, kicked out. She crossed her arms and stared at him, her eyes narrow and sneaky. She thought she had all the power. She thought she could scare Jake and make him feel small. She thought he was just some nobody who'd bow down to her rules. Boy, was she wrong. Jake didn't bow down. He didn't even flinch. He just stood there, looking at her, his face all calm and steady. Inside, he was confused. Fined. Kicked out? For a beep? That didn't make sense. But he didn't yell back. He didn't get mad. He just watched her, like he was studying her or something. And if you looked really close, you'd see something funny. A tiny little sparkle in his eyes. Not a big smile or anything, just a little glint. Why? Because Jake wasn't scared. He wasn't worried. He had something up his sleeve, something Karen didn't know about. But she was too busy yelling to notice. Karen kept going. She paced back and forth in the street, her flip-flops slapping loud against the pavement. This is a nice neighborhood, she said, waving her arms around. We don't need people like you making noise and driving junk like that. She pointed at his car again, her finger shaking with anger. Jake tilted his head. People like him? What did that even mean? He wasn't loud. He wasn't mean. He paid his bills and kept his house tidy, well, mostly tidy. There was that one weed in his yard, but come on, it was tiny. He didn't get why Karen was so mad. But she didn't stop. You think you can just move in here and do whatever you want, she shouted. Well, think again. I'm in charge around here. She puffed out her chest like a bird showing off its feathers. I make the rules, and you're breaking them. Jake scratched his head. Rules? What rules? He didn't remember signing up for any no-beeping club. But Karen acted like he'd broken some giant law. She held up her phone and started dialing, her fingers moving fast. I'm calling the cops right now, she said, her voice full of glee. They'll fix you. Jake watched her dial. He could hear the little beeps from her phone as she pressed the buttons. Ironic, right? She was mad about a beep, but her phone was beeping too. He almost laughed, but he didn't. He stayed quiet. Hello, yes. Karen said into the phone, talking loud so everyone could hear. I've got a problem here. This guy is making noise with his car horn. It's against the rules. Send someone quick. She glared at Jake while she talked, her eyes like lasers. She thought she was winning. She thought the cops would show up, grab Jake, and drag him away. She thought she was the queen of the street, and Jake was just a bug she could squish. But Jake didn't look like a bug. He didn't look scared or squished. He leaned against his car, his arms crossed, his grocery bag still in his hand. The sun shone down, making his brown hair glow a little. He looked relaxed. Too relaxed. Most people would freak out if someone called the cops on them. Most people would say, hey, stop that, or this is silly. But not Jake. He just stood there, cool and quiet, like he was waiting for something. And that little sparkle in his eyes? It got a tiny bit brighter. Why wasn't he mad? Why wasn't he arguing? What did he know that Karen didn't? Karen hung up the phone with a big, smug grin. They're on their way, she said, pointing at him again. You're in big trouble now, mister. She flipped her hair and crossed her arms, standing tall like she'd just won a gold medal. She thought she had Jake trapped. She thought he'd beg her to stop or run inside and hide. But Jake didn't beg. He didn't run. He just nodded a little, like he was saying, okay, cool. That made Karen pause. She squinted at him. What's wrong with you, she snapped. Don't you care? Jake shrugged. It's just a horn, he said again, his voice still nice and calm. No big deal. But to Karen, it was a big deal. A huge deal. That beep was like a slap in her face, a crack in her perfect world. She couldn't stand it. She couldn't stand Jake. She wanted him gone, fined, kicked out, whatever it took. No big deal, she yelled, stepping closer. You'll see how big it is when the cops get here. Her flip-flops slapped louder as she stomped toward him, her face turning red with anger. The neighbors started peeking out now. The old lady with the flowers opened her curtains a little. The dad with the dog stepped onto his porch, pretending to check his mailbox. They could hear Karen yelling. They could see Jake standing there, all calm and quiet. They wondered what was going on. Karen was always loud, sure, but calling the cops over a car horn? That was new. Even for her. They looked at Jake, waiting for him to do something. Would he shout back? Would he get mad? Nope. He just stayed there, leaning on his car, watching Karen like she was a show on TV. Karen kept talking, her voice getting louder and louder. I've lived here for years, she said. I keep this place perfect. And then you show up with that thing. She waved her hand at his car again, like it was the ugliest thing she'd ever seen. You're ruining everything. Jake looked at his car. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't ruining anything. It just sat there, quiet now, not beeping anymore. He didn't get why she hated it so much. But Karen didn't need a reason. She just liked being mad. She liked being in charge. And Jake? He was in her way. I'll make sure you're sorry, Karen said, her voice low and sneaky now. You'll wish you never moved here. She smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. It was a mean one, like a shark showing its teeth. She thought she had all the power. She thought Jake was weak and small, just some guy she could push around. She thought the cops would come and take her side, because she was Karen, the HOA queen. She thought wrong. Oh, so wrong. Because Jake wasn't weak. He wasn't small. He was something else, something she didn't see yet. And that little beep? It was just the start of her big mistake. The air felt tense now. The sun was still shining, the birds were still chirping, but something was brewing. Karen stood there, smirking, waiting for the cops. Jake stood there, calm, waiting for something. The neighbors watched, holding their breath. What would happen next? Would Karen win? Would Jake lose? Or was there more to the story, something wild and sneaky that nobody saw coming? Jake's eyes sparkled again, just a tiny bit more. He knew something. Something big. And Karen? She was about to find out she wasn't the boss she thought she was. Days went by after that first big fight, and Karen didn't let up. Not even a little. She was like a hawk watching Jake, waiting for him to mess up. Every time he stepped outside his little house, she was there. Her eyes would narrow, and she'd glare at him like he'd done something awful. If Jake walked to his mailbox, Karen stared from her porch. If he took out his trash, she'd peek out her window. She even started scribbling notes in a little black book she carried around. What was she writing? Oh, she had lots to say about Jake. She wrote that his car was loud even though it only beeped that one time. She wrote that his lawn was messy, but really, it was just one tiny weed poking up by his steps. One weed. That's it? But to Karen, it was like Jake's yard was a jungle. Jake saw her watching. He saw her scribbling. But he didn't fight back. He didn't yell or wave his arms or tell her to stop. Nope. He just watched her right back. Quietly. Carefully. He'd walk outside, see her glaring, and give her a little wave. Hi, Karen, he'd say, nice and calm. That made her madder. She'd huff and puff and stomp her flip-flops, but Jake didn't care. He'd go about his day grabbing his mail, watering his one flower pot, sitting on his porch with a soda. He acted like nothing was wrong. But here's the thing, Jake wasn't just some guy with a rusty car and a tiny weed. Oh no. He had a job, a special job that Karen didn't know about. And every time she bossed him around or glared at him, he smiled a little more. Just a tiny smile, sneaky and small. Why? Because he knew something big was coming. Something she'd never guess. Karen didn't see that smile. She was too busy being mad. She'd march up and down her perfect lawn, muttering to herself about Jake. That car has got to go, she'd say, loud enough for him to hear. He doesn't belong here. She'd point at his house like it was a big problem. Jake's house wasn't fancy like hers. It didn't have shiny windows or a big garage. It was small and plain, with a creaky front door and a mailbox that leaned a little to the left. But it was his, and he liked it. Karen didn't. She thought everything should be perfect like her house, her lawn, her rules. And Jake? He was messing up her perfect picture. One morning, Jake went out to check his car. He popped the hood because sometimes it made funny noises and started poking around. Karen saw him from her porch. She grabbed her little black book and wrote something fast, her pen scratching loud. Then she yelled, "What are you doing out there? Making more noise." Jake looked up, surprised. "Just fixing my car," he said, holding up a wrench. His voice was soft, like always. Karen snorted. "Fixing it? You should throw it away. It's an eyesore." An eyesore means something ugly, by the way, and Karen thought Jake's car was the ugliest thing ever. Jake just shrugged. "It works for me," he said, and went back to his tinkering. Karen stomped her foot. "You're ruining this neighborhood," she shouted. "I'll tell the HOA." Jake didn't look up this time. He kept working, but that tiny smile came back. He didn't say anything, but he was thinking something. Something sneaky. See, Karen thought she could scare him. She thought her yelling and her little black book would make him pack up and leave. She thought she was the boss of everything. But Jake? He wasn't scared. He wasn't leaving. He was waiting. Waiting for the right moment. Because his secret job was teaching him patience. And that patience was going to pay off big time. Days turned into weeks, and Karen got worse. She didn't just glare anymore, she started leaving notes. One day, Jake found a piece of paper taped to his mailbox. It said, "Your car is too loud. Fix it or else." The "or else" part was underlined 3 times in red pen. Jake read it and chuckled. Too loud. It hadn't even beeped since that first day. But Karen didn't care about facts. She cared about control. Another day, she left a note on his door. "Mow your lawn," it said. Jake looked at his yard. That one tiny weed was still there, but the grass? It was short. He'd mowed it 2 days ago. He shook his head and tossed the note in the trash. Karen was picking on him for nothing, and he knew it. The neighbors noticed too. The old lady with the flowers saw Karen taping notes and frowned. "She's at it again," she muttered to herself. The dad with the dog walked by one day and saw Jake reading one of the notes. "Karen giving you trouble?" he asked. Jake nodded. "Yep," he said, "simple as that." The dad sighed. "She does that to everyone. Don't let her get to you." Jake smiled that sneaky little smile again. "Oh, I won't," he said. The dad tilted his head, curious, but didn't ask more. He just kept walking his dog, leaving Jake standing there with his secret bubbling inside. Karen didn't stop with notes. She started knocking on doors, talking to the neighbors about Jake. "He's a problem," she'd say, waving her little black book. "That car. That lawn. We need to do something." Most people just nodded and shut their doors fast. They didn't want to argue with Karen. She was loud and pushy, and nobody liked fighting with her. But Jake? He heard about it. The old lady with the flowers told him one day when he waved hello. "She's saying bad stuff about you," the old lady said, watering her roses. "Says you're trouble." Jake laughed. "Me? Trouble?" he said. "I just live here." The old lady smiled. "I know. She's silly." Jake nodded, but that sparkle in his eyes got brighter. "Silly? Maybe. But Karen was about to look a lot sillier. Then came the big day, the day Karen went too far. It was a warm afternoon, and Jake was outside again. He'd just come back from the store, more chips, more soda, you know the drill. He pulled into his driveway, and guess what? His horn beeped again. Beep. Just like the first time, it was an accident. His elbow bumped the wheel as he parked. It wasn't loud. It wasn't long. Just a tiny beep. Jake didn't even think about it. He grabbed his bags and stepped out of the car, ready to head inside. But across the street, Karen heard it. Oh boy, did she hear it? She was on her porch, sipping lemonade, when that beep hit her ears. Her head snapped up so fast her lemonade almost spilled. She slammed her glass down, stood up, and screamed, "That's it?" Her voice was so loud the birds stopped chirping. Jake froze, his bags in his hands, and turned to look. Karen was red in the face, her eyes wide with fury. "You did it again," she yelled, pointing at him like he'd just set her house on fire. "That horn. That noise. I've had enough." Jake blinked. "It was an accident," he said, calm as ever. But Karen didn't want calm. She wanted a fight. "Accident," she shouted, stomping down her steps. "You're a liar. You're doing it on purpose." She grabbed her phone from her pocket, her fingers shaking with anger. "I'm calling 911 right now," she screamed. "I've got a noise violation. Send the police now." She dialed fast, her flip-flops slapping as she paced her porch. Jake watched her, still holding his grocery bags. He didn't say a word. He didn't move. He just leaned against his car, crossing his arms, letting the bags sit by his feet. The neighbors peeked out again, the old lady, the dad, even a kid on a bike down the street. Everyone heard Karen. Everyone saw Jake. And everyone wondered what would happen next. Karen held the phone to her ear, talking loud. "Yes, hello," she said. "This guy keeps honking his horn. It's breaking the rules. Get someone here fast." She glared at Jake the whole time, her lips tight and mean. She thought she had him. She thought the cops would come and make him pay. She thought she was the winner. But Jake? He didn't look like a loser. He didn't look worried at all. He stood there, cool and quiet, his arms crossed like he was waiting for a bus. And his eyes? Oh, they sparkled with something sneaky. Something clever. Something Karen didn't see. Why wasn't Jake mad? Why wasn't he yelling back? Most people would be upset if someone called the cops on them, especially over something as small as a beep. But Jake wasn't most people. He had that job, that secret job Karen didn't know about. And every time she bossed him around, every time she wrote a note or glared at him, he'd been watching her too. Quietly. Carefully. He'd seen how she acted. He'd heard what she said. And he knew something big was coming, something that would flip this whole mess upside down. What did he know? What was his secret? Karen was about to find out, and she wasn't going to like it one bit. The air felt heavy now. Karen stood on her porch, smirking, waiting for the police. Jake leaned on his car, calm and steady, waiting for something else. The neighbors watched, whispering to each other. The kid on the bike stopped riding and stared. Something was brewing, something wild. That tiny beep had started it all, and now it was growing into a big, crazy storm. Karen thought she was the lightning, striking Jake down. But Jake? He was the thunder, quiet now, but ready to rumble. And when it hit? Oh, it was going to be loud. The police car rolled up fast, its lights flashing red and blue. It screeched to a stop right in front of Jake's house, tires squeaking on the pavement. The whole neighborhood went quiet. The birds stopped chirping. The kid on the bike down the street froze, his mouth open. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Karen stood on her porch, arms folded tight across her chest, grinning like she'd just won $1 million. Her bright pink flip-flops glowed in the sunlight, and her red lipstick made her smile look extra big. She was so sure she'd won. She'd called the cops, and now they were here. In her mind, Jake was toast. Done for. She couldn't wait to see him get in trouble. Arrest him. Karen barked, pointing at Jake with her finger like it was a magic wand. Her voice was loud and sharp, cutting through the air. She bounced a little on her toes, so excited she could barely stand still. Jake was leaning against his rusty car, arms crossed, his grocery bag still sitting by his feet. He didn't move. He didn't flinch. He just watched, his face calm and steady. The cop stepped out of the car, his boots hitting the ground with a soft thud. He was tall, with a shiny badge on his chest and a serious look on his face. He glanced at Jake, then turned his eyes to Karen. Ma'am, he said, his voice low and firm, we're not here for him. Karen froze. Her big grin stopped cold, like someone had pressed pause on a movie. Her arms dropped to her sides. What? She sputtered, her voice cracking. She blinked fast, like she couldn't believe her ears. What do you mean, not here for him? She pointed at Jake again, harder this time, her hand shaking. He's the one breaking the rules. That horn. That noise. Arrest him. The cop didn't even look at Jake this time. He reached into his car and pulled out a clipboard, flipping through some papers. Nope, he said, shaking his head. We've got a warrant. For you. Karen's jaw dropped. Literally. Her mouth fell open so wide you could see her back teeth. Her eyes got huge, like two big marbles popping out of her head. Me, she squeaked, her voice all high and wobbly. A warrant for me? That's crazy. She took a step back, her flip-flop slipping a little on her porch. She looked at the cop, then at Jake, then back at the cop. Her brain was spinning, trying to figure out what was happening. She thought she was the boss. She thought she'd called the cops to win. But now? Now she was the one in trouble, and she didn't get it? Not yet. Jake finally moved. He uncrossed his arms and stood up straight, brushing some dust off his jeans. He looked at Karen, and his voice came out calm but strong like a teacher explaining something important. Oh, didn't I mention, he said, tilting his head a little. I'm an off-duty cop. Been watching you for weeks. Boom. There it was. The big secret. The sneaky truth he'd been hiding all along. Karen's face went white. Her red lipstick stood out even more now, like a clown's smile on a ghost. A cop, she whispered, her voice tiny. You. Jake nodded, that sneaky sparkle in his eyes shining bright now. Yep, he said. Not just any cop, either. I work undercover. That means I sneak around, sniffing out trouble. And you, Karen. You've been trouble for a long time. Karen's legs wobbled. She grabbed the railing on her porch to steady herself. She couldn't talk. She couldn't yell. She just stared at Jake, her mouth still open, her brain trying to catch up. The neighbors peeked out more now, the old lady with the flowers, the dad with the dog, even the kid on the bike rolled closer. They heard it. They saw it. And they couldn't believe it either. The cop with the clipboard stepped forward, holding up a paper. Karen Thompson, he said, reading from it. We've got complaints about you. Lots of them. He tapped the paper with his finger. Fake calls to the police. Threats to neighbors. Even messing with people's mail. That's against the law, you know. Karen shook her head fast, her blonde hair bouncing. No, she said, her voice loud again. That's not true. I didn't do anything. But the cop didn't stop. We've got proof, he said. Letters. Phone records. Even pictures. And guess who helped us get it? He nodded at Jake. Karen's eyes snapped to Jake. You, she shouted, pointing again. You did this. Jake shrugged, his hands in his pockets now. I just watched, he said. You did the rest. Karen's face turned red, bright red, like a tomato ready to burst. She stomped her foot, her flip-flop making a loud slap. This is a trick, she yelled. He's lying. He's not a cop. Look at him. Look at that junk car. She waved her arm at Jake's rusty car, like it proved her point. But the cop with the clipboard just sighed. He's a cop, ma'am, he said. Badge and all. Want to see it? Jake reached into his back pocket and pulled out a little leather wallet. He flipped it open, and there it was, a shiny gold badge with his name on it, Jake Dawson, police officer. The sun hit it just right, making it gleam. Karen stared at it, her mouth moving but no words coming out. The neighbors gasped. The old lady dropped her watering can, and it clattered on her steps. The dad with the dog whistled low. The kid on the bike yelled, "Cool." Jake put the badge back in his pocket, calm as ever. Told you, he said to Karen. Been watching you for weeks. Karen's hands clenched into fists. Watching me, she snapped. Why me? Jake stepped closer, his voice still steady. Because people ask me to, he said. The whole neighborhood's been begging someone to stop you. You've been mean, Karen. Yelling at everyone. Making fake rules. Writing those notes. And the mail thing? That's big trouble. Karen shook her head again, harder this time. I didn't touch anyone's mail, she shouted. But Jake just looked at her, and that sparkle in his eyes said he knew better. The cop with the clipboard flipped another page. We've got a picture, he said. You opening Mrs. Miller's mailbox last month. Took her check and threw it in the trash. Mrs. Miller was the old lady with the flowers. She gasped from her window, her hand on her chest. My check, she said. I knew it. Karen's face went white again. That's not me, she stammered. But the cop held up the paper, and there was a blurry photo Karen in her pink flip-flops, standing by a mailbox, holding an envelope. Got it on a security camera, the cop said. Clear as day. Karen's legs shook more. She sat down hard on her porch steps, her flip-flops slipping off one foot. This can't be happening, she muttered. I'm the good one. He's the bad one. She pointed at Jake again, but her hand was weak now, like all her fight was gone. Jake shook his head. I'm just doing my job, he said. You've been breaking rules left and right. Fake complaints to the cops like today. Threats to kick people out. And that mail? That's a crime, Karen. A big one. The cop nodded. She's right about one thing, he said to Jake. You're good at this undercover stuff. Nobody knew. Jake smiled, a real smile this time, not just a sneaky one. Thanks, he said. It's why I drive that car. Nobody suspects a guy with a rusty old junker. The cop laughed. Smart, he said. Karen glared at them both, her face a mix of red and white now, like she couldn't decide if she was mad or scared. This is unfair, she yelled. I'm the victim here. But nobody bought it? The neighbors were all outside now, watching from their yards. The old lady with the flowers stepped onto her porch, arms crossed. Victim, she said. You've been a bully, Karen. The dad with the dog nodded. She yelled at my kid for riding his bike too fast, he said. The kid on the bike piped up. She took my ball once. More voices chimed in, one by one. She told me my dog was too loud. She said my flowers were ugly. She left me a mean note. The whole neighborhood had stories, and they were tired of Karen. Tired of her rules. Tired of her yelling. And Jake? He'd heard it all. He'd listened. He'd watched. And he'd waited for this moment. Karen looked around, her eyes wild. You're all against me, she shouted. This is a trick. But the cop stepped closer, his clipboard under his arm now. No trick, he said. Just the law. You're coming with us. Karen jumped up, her flip-flops back on. No, she yelled. I won't. She tried to run inside, but the cop was faster. He grabbed her arm, not hard, just firm, and stopped her. Let's not make this worse, he said. Karen pulled, but she couldn't get free. This is wrong, she screamed. He's the bad guy. Jake picked up his grocery bags, casual as can be. I'm just a neighbor, he said. And a cop. You're the one who broke the rules, Karen. She glared at him, her eyes like fire. You'll pay for this, she hissed. But Jake just shrugged. I don't think so, he said. The cop started walking Karen to the car, reading her rights. You have the right to remain silent, he began. Karen didn't stay silent. She yelled the whole way, her voice echoing down the street. This isn't fair. I'm the boss here. You can't do this. But they could. And they did. The cop opened the car door, and Karen had to sit inside. Her flip-flops stuck out as she kicked her legs, still shouting. I'll sue you all, she said. You'll see. The cop shut the door, and her voice got muffled. The lights flashed again as the car started up. Jake watched, his bags in his hands, his face calm. The neighbors clapped soft at first, then louder. The old lady smiled. The dad high-fived his kid. The kid on the bike cheered. Karen was going away, and they were happy. Really happy. Jake turned to the cop before he got in the car. Thanks for coming quick, he said. The cop nodded. "Good work, Dawson," he said. "You nailed this one." Jake grinned. "Just doing my job," he said. The cop drove off, Karen's yells fading as the car turned the corner. The street went quiet again, peaceful, like it hadn't been in months. Jake looked at his rusty car, then at his house. He'd been undercover, sniffing out trouble, and he'd found it. Karen thought she ruled the world. She thought Jake was a nobody. But she was wrong. So wrong. And now everyone knew the truth. Karen's face turned red, bright red, like a ripe apple as the cop read her rights. He stood by the police car, his voice steady and clear. "You have the right to remain silent," he said, holding her arm so she wouldn't run. Karen didn't stay silent, though. "Oh no. This is a mistake," she yelled, her voice loud and wild. "You've got the wrong person. Let me go." She pulled against the cop's grip, her pink flip-flops sliding on the pavement. But the cop didn't budge. He just kept reading, calm as can be. "Anything you say can be used against you," Karen didn't care. She kept shouting, her words bouncing off the houses. "I didn't do anything. This is all wrong." But no one listened. Not the cop. Not Jake. Not even the neighbors. The neighbors were all watching now. They peeked out their windows, their faces pressed against the glass. The old lady with the flowers stood by her roses, her hands on her hips. The dad with the dog leaned out his door, his pup wagging its tail. The kid on the bike rolled closer, his eyes big and round. They whispered to each other, soft and sneaky. "She's finally getting it," the old lady said, nodding slow. "About time," the dad muttered, a little smile on his face. They weren't scared anymore. They weren't hiding. They were glad, really glad to see Karen in trouble. For months, she'd bossed them around, yelled at them, left mean notes. Now it was over. Jake stood by his rusty car, his arms crossed, watching it all. The cop opened the police car door, and Karen had to sit inside. She didn't go easy. She kicked her legs, her flip-flops flying off one foot and landing on the grass. "You can't do this," she screamed, her voice muffled as the door shut. The cop picked up her shoe and tossed it in after her, then climbed into the driver's seat. Jake grinned a small, happy grin and said, "You can't honk your way out of this one." His voice was light, almost playful, like he was teasing her. Karen glared at him through the window, her face squished against the glass, but she couldn't do anything. The car started up, lights flashing again, and rolled away. Karen's yells got quieter and quieter until they were gone. The street went silent. No more shouting. No more flip-flop slapping. Just peace, real peace for the first time in months. The birds started chirping again, soft and happy. The sun shone down, warm and bright, like it was smiling too. Jake looked around, his grin still there. He picked up his grocery bags, chips, soda, gummy worms and walked to his porch. The neighbors watched him go, their whispers turning to nods. "He did it," the kid on the bike said, pedaling in a circle. "He stopped her." The old lady waved at Jake, her watering can back in her hand. The dad gave a thumbs up. They all knew what Jake had done. And they were thankful. A few days later, something cool happened. Jake was sitting on his porch, sipping a soda, when the mailman came by. The mailman was a short guy with a big hat, always whistling a tune. "Got something for you, Jake," he said, handing over a white envelope. Jake took it, curious. It wasn't a bill or a junk ad. It had fancy writing on it, and a little stamp that said HOA. Jake opened it slow, pulling out a letter. He read it, and his grin got bigger. It wasn't a fine. It wasn't a mean note like Karen used to leave. It was an apology, a real one from the Homeowners Association. The letter said, "Dear Mr. Dawson, we're sorry for all the trouble. Karen was out of line. We didn't know how bad she was. Thank you for helping us fix this mess. You're a good neighbor." Jake laughed a little, folding the letter back up. Turns out, the HOA people, the ones who make the rules, had been scared of Karen too. She'd bossed them around just like she bossed everyone else. They didn't know about the fake complaints or the mail she messed with. They thought she was just loud, not a lawbreaker. But Jake? He'd shown them the truth. He'd cleaned up the mess, and now they were saying thanks. Jake didn't brag about it. He didn't run around shouting, "I'm the hero." Nope. He tucked the letter in his pocket and went back to his soda. He was happy, sure, but he didn't need a big fuss. That's just how Jake was: quiet, cool, and steady. He liked his simple life. He liked his little house with the creaky door and the leaning mailbox. He even liked his rusty car, even if Karen hated it. Speaking of that car, Jake decided to fix it up a bit. Not because Karen was right it wasn't an eyesore, but because he wanted to. He spent a sunny afternoon in his driveway, sanding down some rust, painting over the scratches. It still looked old, but now it had a little shine. Jake patted the hood and said, "Good enough." The neighbors started acting different after that day. They didn't just peek anymore, they came out. The old lady with the flowers brought Jake a rose one morning. "For your porch," she said, smiling big. Jake took it and put it in a cup of water by his chair. "Thanks, Mrs. Miller," he said. She nodded. "You're a good boy," she told him, then shuffled back to her roses. The dad with the dog stopped by too. "Hey, Jake," he said, his pup sniffing Jake's shoes. "Want to come over for burgers sometime?" Jake grinned. "Sure," he said. "Love a good burger." The dad laughed. "You earned it, man." Even the kid on the bike got brave. He rode up to Jake's driveway one day, his helmet crooked. "Are you really a cop?" he asked, eyes wide. Jake leaned down, hands on his knees. "Yep," he said. "But it's a secret job, so don't tell, okay?" The kid giggled and zipped his lips with his finger. "Promise," he said, then pedaled off, yelling, "Cops are cool." Jake watched him go, shaking his head with a smile. The neighborhood felt alive now, not scared or quiet, but friendly. Happy. All because Karen was gone, and Jake had made it happen. Karen didn't come back. Not that week, not that month. Word got around she'd been taken to the police station, and they found more stuff she'd done wrong. Messing with mail wasn't her only trick. She'd lied about other things too, like saying people owed money they didn't. The cops kept her busy with questions, and the neighbors heard she might have to pay a fine or even stay away longer. Nobody missed her. Her big, perfect house sat empty, the grass growing a little wild. No more glaring. No more notes. Just quiet. Jake went back to his normal life. He'd wake up, make some cereal, and sit on his porch. He'd wave to the neighbors as they walked by. "Morning, Jake," they'd say, and he'd wave back. "Morning." He'd drive his rusty car to the store, grab his snacks, and come home. Sometimes he'd tinker with the car, sometimes he'd water that one flower pot. He didn't talk about being a cop much. He didn't need to. Everyone knew now Jake was the guy who kept his cool and fixed the problem. And they liked him for it. One evening, the old lady with the flowers threw a little party. Not a big one, just some neighbors in her backyard, eating cookies and drinking lemonade. She invited Jake, and he went. He wore his usual jeans and a plain shirt, nothing fancy. The dad was there with his dog, the kid was there with his bike, and a few others showed up too. They sat on chairs and blankets, chatting and laughing. To Jake, the old lady said, raising her lemonade glass, "For making our street nice again." Everyone clapped, and Jake's face got a little red. "Ah, it's nothing," he said, sipping his drink. But they kept clapping, because to them, it was something big. The dad leaned over to Jake. "How'd you stay so calm?" he asked. "Karen yelled at you all the time." Jake shrugged. "Part of the job," he said. "I watch, I wait, I fix. No point in getting mad." The dad nodded, impressed. "Well, you're good at it," he said. The kid piped up, crumbs on his face from a cookie. "Did you arrest her with handcuffs?" he asked. Jake laughed. "Nah, the other cop did that," he said. "I just watched." The kid grinned. Still cool. The party went on, and the sun set slow, painting the sky orange and pink. Jake sat there, listening to the chatter, feeling good. He didn't need a medal or a big thank you sign. This was enough: the neighbors happy, the street peaceful, the air full of laughs instead of yells. He thought about Karen for a second, wondering if she'd learned anything. Probably not, he figured. She'd probably yell at the cops too. But that wasn't his problem anymore. His job was done, and he'd done it well. Days turned into weeks, and the neighborhood stayed nice. No more trouble. No more fake rules. The HOA sent out a new letter not to Jake, but to everyone. It said they'd make things fair now, no more bossy Karens running the show. People liked that. They started talking more, helping each other out. The old lady shared her flowers, the dad grilled burgers for everyone, the kid rode his bike without worry. And Jake? He was part of it all, just the quiet guy with the rusty car who'd changed everything. One morning, Jake sat on his porch, looking at his street. The sun was up, the birds were singing, and his rose from Mrs. Miller was blooming in its cup. He took a sip of soda and smiled. Everyone knew now, don't mess with the guy who keeps his cool. Karen had learned that the hard way. She thought she could push him around, scare him off, win her little game. But Jake? He'd stayed steady, watched her tricks, and turned it all around. Justice was served, not loud or flashy, but solid and sure. And the neighborhood? It was better for it? So, what do you think? Pretty wild story, huh? We started with Jake, just a regular guy with his rusty car, and Karen, the loud HOA lady who thought she ruled the world. She yelled, she pointed, she called the cops all over a tiny beep. And Jake? He didn't yell back. He didn't run. He stayed cool and quiet, like a superhero hiding his powers. Then bam, he turned it all around. He wasn't just some guy. He was a secret cop, watching Karen, waiting for the perfect moment to show everyone who she really was. And when that moment came, oh boy, it was awesome. Karen's big bossy plan fell apart, and Jake saved the day without even raising his voice. Let's talk about that for a second. Sometimes, the loudest person on the block isn't the strongest. Think about it. Karen was loud, super loud. She shouted at Jake, she shouted at the neighbors, she even shouted at the cops when they took her away. Her voice was like a big horn, blasting everyone with her rules and her mean words. She thought being loud made her tough. She thought it made her the boss. But was she strong? Nope. All that yelling didn't help her win. It didn't make her right. It just made her look silly in the end, sitting in that police car with her flip-flops flying off. Loud doesn't mean strong. Loud just means noise. Now think about Jake. He was the quiet one. He didn't shout. He didn't stomp around or wave his arms. When Karen glared at him, he waved back. When she left mean notes, he tossed them in the trash. When she called the cops, he leaned on his car and waited. Quiet, steady, calm like a rock that doesn't move, no matter how hard the wind blows. And guess what? That quiet guy surprised everyone. He had a secret, a big one, and he used it to fix everything. The quiet ones. They might just surprise you. They don't need to yell to be strong. They don't need to show off to win. They just do their thing, smart and sneaky, and come out on top. That's a cool lesson, right? Next time someone tries to push you around, remember Jake. Maybe it's a kid at school who's always bossing people. Maybe it's someone saying mean stuff to make you feel small. They might be loud, like Karen, thinking they're in charge. But you? You can be like Jake, steady, smart, and ready to turn the tables. You don't have to fight back with yelling or fists. You can watch, wait, and find your moment. Maybe you tell a teacher. Maybe you stick up for yourself in a calm way. Maybe you just keep being you, strong and quiet, until they figure out they can't win. Jake didn't let Karen scare him. He stayed cool, and he showed her who was really tough. You can do that too. Let's picture it. Say there's a bully at school like a mini Karen. She's loud, telling everyone what to do. Give me your lunch, she says, or you can't play here. She thinks she's the queen of the playground. Everyone's scared of her big voice and her mean looks. But you? You're like Jake. You don't cry or run. You stand there, maybe with a little smile, and you don't let her push you. You wait. You think. And then, when she's not expecting it, you do something smart. Maybe you tell a grown-up who can help. Maybe you get your friends together so she can't boss you alone. Or maybe you just keep being nice, and she gets tired of trying. That's turning the tables, flipping the game so the bully loses, not you. Jake's story shows us something big: you don't need to be loud to be powerful. Karen thought power was all about shouting and pointing and making people do what she wanted. But real power? It's quieter. It's in your head, in your heart, in the way you stay strong even when someone's being mean. Jake had that power. He didn't need to honk a big horn or wave a fancy badge every day. He kept it secret, used it smart, and saved the neighborhood. That's cool, right? You've got power to your own kind. Maybe it's being brave. Maybe it's being kind. Maybe it's just not giving up. Whatever it is, it's yours, and no loud bully can take it away. Hey, let's make this fun. Tell me in the comments, have you ever stood up to a bully like Karen? I bet you've got a story. Maybe it was at school, or with a friend, or even at home. Did you stay calm like Jake? Did you surprise them with something smart? Write it down, I want to hear. I'll read every single one, because your stories are awesome. Maybe you told a bully, "Nope, I'm not scared," and walked away. Maybe you helped a friend who was getting picked on. Or maybe you just kept being you, steady and strong, until the bully gave up. Whatever it was, you're a little like Jake, and that's super cool. Think about your neighborhood too, not just the street, but your school, your park, your world. There's always a Karen somewhere, right? Someone loud, trying to push people around. But there's always a Jake too, someone quiet who doesn't let the noise win. Maybe that's you. Maybe it's your best friend. Or maybe it's someone you haven't noticed yet, waiting for their big moment. The world's full of both kinds, loud Karens and quiet Jakes. And the quiet ones. They're the ones who surprise us. They're the ones who fix things. They're the ones who show us that strength isn't about volume, it's about heart. Let's imagine Jake now, sitting on his porch. The sun's shining, his rusty car's parked in the driveway, and his rose from Mrs. Miller is blooming in its cup. He's sipping his soda, waving to the neighbors, living his quiet life. He's happy not because he bragged or showed off, but because he did something good. He didn't need a big party or a loud cheer. He just needed that peaceful street, those friendly waves, that feeling of knowing he'd helped. That's what winning looks like for Jake. Not a trophy, not a crown, but a calm day and a job well done. You can win like that too, quietly, smartly, in your own way. What about Karen? Well, she's probably still mad, yelling at someone somewhere. Maybe she's learned a tiny bit, maybe not. But she's not here anymore, bossing Jake or the neighbors. She thought she was the strongest because she was the loudest. She thought wrong. And that's the fun part, sometimes the people who act big and tough are the ones who fall the hardest. Jake didn't push her down. He didn't fight her with fists or shouts. He just let her trip over her own mean tricks. That's a lesson for us too. Bullies like Karen don't always win. They might sound big, but they're not unbeatable. Not when there's a Jake around or a you. So here's something to carry with you: be steady like Jake. Next time life gets loud, maybe a bully, maybe a tough day, maybe something scary, don't let it shake you. Stand there, think smart, and wait for your chance. You don't have to scream or cry or run. You can be the quiet one who surprises everyone. You've got that power inside you, just like Jake did. Maybe it's not a secret cop badge, but it's something: courage, kindness, brains. Use it. Hold it tight. And when the time's right, turn the tables. You'll see quiet can be louder than loud ever was. Thanks for hanging out with me. This story was a wild ride, wasn't it? From that tiny beep to Karen's big flop, Jake showed us how to be cool and strong in the best way. I loved telling it to you, and I hope you loved hearing it. Tell me your bully stories in the comments, I can't wait to read them. And guess what? I've got more tales coming, fun ones, crazy ones, ones that'll make you cheer. So stick around, hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and let's keep the fun going. See you in the next story, you awesome, quiet, strong kid. Bye for now.